Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, how to trigger a desktop support engineer or security is my religion. Different agent, same answer. The day my boss won tech support. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. How to trigger a desktop support engineer or security is my religion. This is a tale of the supporter also being the supported. It started out as a simple private rant on social media about an incident at work, but I was urged by colleagues to share it here as it's quite relatable to any self-respecting IT supporter. I am of course adding narrative to it, so it's much less of a rant, and more of a tale that you, dear reader, may immerse yourself in. I work for a large international company with offices on home shores, corporate headquarters about 6 time zones one direction, and a service desk at least 6 time zones in the other direction. While it can sometimes lead to some of the weirdest three-way language barrier situations I've ever seen, it can also create a perpetual atmosphere of questioning the motives and intentions of one's colleagues across either pond due to said language barriers and cultural differences. Mind you, it's typically not hostile questioning, but honest confusion as to whether or not something that seems normal to one side is abnormal to the other. My role is the local field support that assists employees on site. It's essentially a Tier 2 role, with the aforementioned distant service desk being the Tier 1 support that provides initial remote support and routes the harder stuff to us Tier 2 folks. It's a very typical IT support organizational structure. Like most companies, we're required to change our passwords with regularity. The sun was setting on my current password's reign in my muscle memory, and it was time to crown a new phrase that would no doubt be typed out the next time I had a nightmare about work. With a new password already in mind, I at last complied with the notification that had been harassing me for a week, and completed the change. As good measure, I also rebooted my machine to make sure I was using updated credentials with the domain and wouldn't get strange prompts from Outlook or other software that was using my desktop credentials. All was well in the world for quite a few hours after that. It was sometime in the early afternoon that I had gotten a ticket that required resetting a user's password, not going into detail as it's not important, and I needed to access the Active Directory console. Most of the server admin functions are done through Citrix, as the network overlords don't want any schmuck having remote login rights on a server. I open up the Citrix page in my standard issue corporate browser and login. 401 unauthorized, access is denied due to invalid credentials. Not the response I was expecting, to say the least. Figuring it might have just been a browser issue, I go to log in using the Citrix desktop application. Your credentials are invalid. Try again or contact your system administration. While I couldn't help but admire some actual consistency in software, this did present a problem for me, as this kept me out of Active Directory to handle this ticket. With Rule 1 immediately popping to mind, I promptly shut up and rebooted my machine. Unfortunately, a reboot didn't clear this particular issue. Having eliminated the most common client-side culprits, I sent an IM to a coworker at another site, asking if he could access Citrix. Having confirmed that he could log in, I immediately handed my ticket off to him to reset the password in my stead, as I now had to do what is seen as unthinkable among us Tier 2 supporters: go crawling to the Tier 1 desk. Their Tier 1 desk has access to more account stuff than us Tier 2 techs do. They're the ones that get the password and account issue calls, while our scope typically involves any actual, but hardly ever literal, desk-side fires that no amount of remote connectivity can address. This meant that they had access to Citrix account management. It had become clear that my Citrix account had ended up borked by the day's password change in AD, thus I had to submit a ticket to Tier 1. I got screenshots of my errors, attached them to my email, included troubleshooting steps performed, and made sure to mention my role of IT field supporter in the subject line so to make this as simple as possible. I also included my role so as to help avoid what I personally believe can be considered a hate crime among IT support folks, patronizing a fellow supporter and/or treating them like an end user. I sent off the email, got the confirmation email from the system, and saw the ticket in my site's local queue pop up. Now all I could do was wait for a Tier 1 tech to grab the case and respond to it. I had other tickets in the local queue to address. My colleague, who I often refer to as Salty Senpai due to his having been in the corporate IT business longer and acquired the seasoning that goes with it, was actually out today, so I was the whole show for my site. Anything that didn't require my going into Citrix was handled over the next couple of hours, while I waited to see an email from Tier 1 about my ticket. As the clock ticked towards my eventual freedom, no email came. I was able to handle the rest of the day's problems without Citrix, so I saw no reason to make noise. My coworker at the other site resolved out the ticket I'd thrown at him, thus clearing the local queue. It looked to be a quiet end of the day. It was about 10 minutes to closing time, so I began gathering my stuff to head out, saving my laptop for last. It was when I was checking to see if my umbrella had dried by the nearby door that I heard a familiar ping in my wireless headphones. I had received an IM. I returned to my seat, opened it up, and saw a name that I didn't want to try to pronounce correctly in fear of offending my own inner cultural justice warrior. One of the Tier 1 techs had grabbed my case and was reaching out to me about the ticket. $1 Tuvaluan equals Tier 1 support tech. $Neo equals Conan O'Brien, apparently we look alike. Note, I am paraphrasing very little of this conversation as sometimes reality is sufficiently shocking enough, and I was reading the chat log in another window just now. $1 Tuvaluan, hello. How are you doing today? $Neo, hey. I am literally about 5 minutes from heading out for today. What's up? I knew what they wanted, but it's only polite to make sure. $1 Tuvaluan, oh okay, just let me know your password for the Windows login. Mental full stop. Set $Neo equals Samuel L. Jackson about to ask a mofo what he just said. $1 Tuvaluan, don't worry. Their attempts at reassurance seemed to have no effect on the various parts of my body that had begun to clench up. $Neo, Actual literal response from the IM log. $1 Tuvaluan, it is for the Citrix issue. Well, thank you for finally answering my polite inquiry as to what you were initially pinging me about. I thought you were just some weirdo asking me for my password out of the blue. It's cool. I'm just over here trying to formulate a response that is as vitriol-free as professionally possible while still getting a point across. Let's take a moment to clarify some things here. I graduated with a degree in computer information systems, which included the appropriate network security classes. I have been doing IT support work for my entire professional life, nearly 10 years. I have seen some *T out there that could have been prevented by due diligence. I hold sacred the second commandment of computer information security: thou shalt not share thy password with thy neighbor. This rule is only second to thou shalt have a password and all the subsections about upper and lower and case letters, etc., that go with it. There have been many a times that users have offered to give me their passwords for data migrations to new systems, because we don't believe in user state migration tools apparently. I have politely asked them not to tell me simply because I hold that second commandment so sacred, and my brain retains the weirdest stuff sometimes. If they ask me why I don't want to know it, I have an answer prepared that makes more sense, and gets more laughs, than a simple "it's against policy" or something like that to an end user. Because I will judge you for it, and not quietly and to myself. I will shout out in front of God and everyone in this cubicle farm in an outside voice what your password is and everything I find wrong with it. My remarks will be so scathing that even Mel Brooks would start crying. His combination "an idiot would put on his luggage" joke from Spaceballs would seem like a cheap toilet joke in comparison to the absolute darkest of shade I would cast upon you and your house for giving me your password. While no one has yet to call my bluff, one day, they will often follow up with a "but it's really good," or some other defense of how awesomely clever their password is. The quick response to that is it can't be that good if you're willing to share it so readily with someone else. Any password shared with someone else is immediately cheapened to absolute garbage, as the very meaning of its existence is taken from it. Now then, let's return to the present. $Neo, You may ask me questions about my password, but I am not giving it out. Just in case I hit an issue where it can't start or end with a specific type of character. I know that some SAP installations have issues like that. The other side is silent for a moment, likely flabbergasted at my blatant act of defiance. $Neo, it does end with a number and starts with a capital letter. $1 I need the password for reinstalling it for the Citrix logon. At this point, the first 7 bolts on my boiler have popped right out. I am hot at this point, and it's now past quitting time. While I am holding out hope that it was just a flub with the language barrier, I'm pretty certain at this point that they're asking for my password to reinstall software on my own laptop. This is something I've done myself numerous times around the facility for other users. My normal account doesn't have domain admin rights. We have separate admin accounts for that kind of stuff, and I'm pretty sure this person has an admin account as well for remote support. They want my password to do a part of my job for me. They're treating me like an end user, a voice in the back of my head tells me. Sometimes it's the small things that send you off on a crusade. I am looking up anyone in IT that has to dress more professionally than I do on one monitor while opening up the corporate intranet page on another. $1 if you provide, I will help as quick as 30 seconds. Credit for trying to be accommodating, but the insistence that it's going to happen is only making things worse. I am already pulling up the PDF from the intranet site that has the corporate policy about password sharing, including the sentence about IT never asking for a password. $Neo, my apologies, but I do need to leave. I have an appointment in the next town that I had arranged. Not a lie, as I should have left 10 minutes ago at this point. I had to ghost this person, which is a personally jerk move, but this line of conversation was only going to end in a stalemate with my hate furnace at maximum. You can't get anywhere good from there, I assure you. I didn't know this person's supervisor. All I knew is that they were Tier 1. These questions were a huge violation of both corporate policy and my own sensibility. All I could do was send a screenshot of the exchange in as a security incident report to the only IT supervisor who wasn't out on leave at the time. I then closed up my laptop and hit the door. This whole exchange left me miffed for the entire evening with questions of what this other person was thinking dancing around my brain the whole time. The next morning, my Citrix login was working fine, and my network password had the same last change timestamp as when I actually changed it, in case the Tier 1 person reset it themselves. I found a follow-up email from the IT supervisor I had emailed the day prior, simply telling me they had brought the contents of my email up with the manager of that area, but nothing about a response. No doubt the time difference at play. While I feel like I might have just cost someone their job, I also know what I did was the correct action to take according to the corporate powers that be. And again, I've seen too many things go awry from poor password management. Different agent, same answer. Hello friendos. Another day, and the forehead-shaped dent in my desk continues to grow ever larger. Today's story is about a man I'm going to call, for some modicum of privacy, Ken. Ken is about my age, so late 20s, early 30s. And he likes to repeat himself while not listening to others. A lot. Ken called the help desk about a week ago. Laptop is running really slow. Like, open an Excel sheet, go to the bathroom and get a cup of coffee, come back and it just opens slow. He's also getting some disk space errors every time he logs in. Being the helpful little drone I am, I remote in to look around, ready to run disk cleanup since he seems like the type to never empty the recycle bin. Oh, how wrong I was. My dude has less than 600 kilobytes of free space left on his C drive. That's kilobyte, with a K. After running disk cleanup. To be fair to the guy, he does have a smallish HDD for his job. It was a 250 gigabytes, but still 600 kilobytes. Apparently, he likes to save everything in the documents folder. I tell him there's not a ton I can do, he needs to delete some of the files on his computer, or better yet, move them to his company shared drive, that has 1 terabyte of space with the option to go to 2 terabytes, so it's not like he'll fill that up anytime soon. After going in circles for a few minutes while he explains his issues with every single program he uses, it finally sinks in that maybe, just maybe, it's all related to having absolutely no free space on his C drive. He agrees to delete some stuff. I make sure to emphasize the importance of also emptying the recycle bin to actually free up space, and move some other things to his drive. Put a nice little bow on everything, close ticket, and forget about it, right? Since I'm making a post about it, that's a very wrong assessment. As of a couple hours ago, this guy has literally called in 14 times so far, for the same exact issue. He's spoken to every one of us at the help desk multiple times, and he's gotten the same answer every time: delete and/or move stuff. And he just won't. He hasn't even really tried. Last ticket we have, he was up to a whole 4 megabytes of free space. Best part? Someone eventually took pity on the guy and escalated a ticket to the on-site team to see about upgrading his HDD yesterday. And they said no, because he just got his computer a few months ago, and his job role does not necessitate anything larger. Guess I'll just have to wait for Ken's next call. Maybe I can get him up to 5 megabytes of free space. Or, keep trying to reason with him until the heat death of the universe. Whichever comes first. The day my boss won tech support. I mostly lurk, but this boys, girls and NB friends, this story had to be told. Some minor context: we do software support for a thing that's used by, essentially everyone. We may go from a call with a mom and pop running everything on an underpowered ancient SBS 11, to a multinational running 10,000 server instances in their own cloud, and have to unscrew whatever stopped doing the thing we're supposed to do on our thing. Not germane to this story, but germane to the ticket. We're not rocket scientists, but we see all kinds of stuff, in all kinds of setups, and everyone came up as a tech first. We're of course, all remote. So Teams and bloody internet access is life. Middle of the day, my boss and I lose Teams. We're coordinating about 20 people and interfacing with a couple other departments on moderately important things. No big deal. 10 minutes later, she pops back into chat. /ISP/ known for being jerks didn't believe me, they FD around and found out. She'd done what any of us would do, already run basic diags and tracers, and knew precisely what had happened, mind you, before she ever called. The Tier 1 call lasted 1 minute 15 seconds as they established that the T1 didn't know what a tracer was, and he handed her off to T2. The T2 call lasted somewhat longer, as they made the mistake of debating whether her knowledge of enterprise-level routing was relevant, and she was forced to explain the finer points of the OSI model to them. They thought they'd placed her on hold. Oops. So she heard the quick discussion of who best in T3 could shut this Karen down. This gave her enough time to backchannel another tech of ours who had come from /ISP, known to be jerks a few years ago, and find out the name of the T3's current lead. By the time he came on the call, she asked him to bring that gent in by name. Presumably wetting himself and wondering what fresh abyss he'd opened on this fine Thursday morning, he did so. She opened with a rundown of the diagnostics she'd been able to run so far, and what she'd need to diagnose the issue on the fly with them. After a quick review, they agreed there was almost certainly something wrong at her last mile node, and they'd get back to her within the hour. Nope. I'm responsible for issues with companies, including yours, that run in the millions of dollars per minute of outage time. My contract with you is ironclad, and according to what I see here, your director's email is X. What personal assurances do I have that you'll have me an answer within 30 minutes? Guys, she extracted a T3 lead's personal cell phone number in under 8 minutes flat. Precisely 26 minutes later, she texted him a picture of the car that had taken out the hub servicing her apartment complex. At 29 minutes, she got a call from the lead, letting her know they'd forwarded it to their local NOC techs, and a truck was rolling. No Karening involved, she just bloody massacred these guys in seconds with pure tech, and all I can do is come to bear the tale of the day my boss won customer support. It's an hour later, and I'm still just kind of sitting here in awe.